Hey, what's up everybody? Lawler here, and welcome to another Rocket League news video, your inside source for everything when I can be. We do have a recap of the grid coming up today for North America. We got week number 2 and a lot of upsets. If you guys heard me hint at it a lot in my power rankings video, this one was all over the place. So hope you guys are all having a fantastic start to your weekend. And as always, if you guys do enjoy the content, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, notifications, all that fun stuff. Also join the community. All that information can be found in the description down below, whether it be Discord or otherwise. We would love to have you in there. But today we're going to be breaking down the grid. We've got week 2 underway. We had 2 groups. We already covered the groups technically, but let's go over the results. We're going to go group by group in the first part, A, B, C, and then D, kind of talk results, some surprises, and then we'll get into the playoff bracket. But we're going to crush through this pretty quick just because there's a lot to cover. So first, we got Group A, Energy, United, Continuum, and Peeps. The biggest surprise here for me was the Peeps continuing to have a little bit of a lesser start, being 1-2 with a -4 game differential. A little bit surprising there because I do think Peeps is a pretty solid team, but for them to be going to 5 against Continuum is pretty surprising. The other side of this is kind of paying attention to United. It was all over the place. United has a good win over the Peeps, and then they go to 5 against Energy, but then for some reason they end up dropping to Continuum in 5. Kind of caught me off guard while I was on broadcast, and even with that, their 2 wins were both overtime, so it wasn't convincing by any means throughout that entire series until game 3, where they ended up winning 3-0, but that's kind of the adjustment game anyway. So that group all over the place. The only thing that remains constant as always is Energy, as dominant as ever. They do drop 2 games, both of those to United. Otherwise, they sweep their opponents. Over to Group B. This is the group of death that we called it. Pittsburgh Knights, G2, Ghost Gaming, and Alpine. I had my sights set on the Pittsburgh Knights and Ghost Gaming game right away because I do think both these teams have similar playstyles, and I wanted to see if PK was the better version that I thought they were. And then they sweep them. So a 3-0 start there, G2 over Alpine. The big surprise here that came was that G2 actually loses to PK, and PK has been as dominant as they looked. That is 2 victories for PK over G2 in the past week. So PK, a team consistent. I wanted to know, is regionals a fluke? Is it going to happen? They come out into groups and continue off that hot performance, a day break, and they come back right at it. So +7 game differential, exact same as Energy. That is very commendable. So PK 1, G2 2, Ghost 3, and Alpine 4. Surprising from Alpine. What I expected for them to be last, but all these new rosters making changes, trying to make some difference happen. We then get into Group C with Space Station, version 1, Charlotte Phoenix, Kansas City Pioneers. This is one I covered as I do cast for version 1 on their broadcast, and it went as expected. We had the expectation that Space Station was going to win the whole thing. Regionals was just one glimpse of Space Station. They're still a very talented team, and they do that. The biggest surprise was Charlotte Phoenix almost won that series. They brought it to 5 and were up, I think, like 2-1 or 2-0 or something like that at one point before Space Station said, no, we're going to win 4-2. So after that one plays out, things kind of go to normal. Version 1 has a hot start against Kansas City Pioneers. As I mentioned, they've been having their number lately. And then version 1 ends up losing to Space Station. Close fight. Probably the biggest frustration was at the end of game 1. It is 2 players on Space Station dribbling down next to each other, and 0 seconds happens. They pinch the ball to pop it up, and then it's an open net. Just stuff that miscommunication, a little bit of issues there. They felt like they didn't have the best defensive performance, which I would agree to on day 2 as well, which we'll talk about here in a bit in the playoff bracket. But version 1 then goes up against a really hot Charlotte Phoenix. They are dominating them in game 1 and 2. Before game 3, there is a really big lull due to server issues, and they made jokes, as we talked about on the broadcast, about how, are we being iced? Are they doing this on purpose? Jokes aside, though, Charlotte Phoenix comes out of the gate. A lot of solo plays, which catches version 1 off guard. They make the adjustment and then close it out 3-1. And as for Space Station, this is a big one for them to close it out as convincingly as they do, but even more so for Kansas City Pioneers, as they do not win a single game. 0-9, 0-3. In their series as well as their matches individually. So that is a tough one for Kansas City Pioneers. They have not been looking all that great recently, but I will say they do end up bouncing back in the playoffs. We then go to the last group in Group D, which is Envy, Rogue, Sonics, and Jamal Jabari. This one was kind of weird because it starts off with Jamal Jabari beating Envy, and that will be their only loss. Very weird for them to be going to 5 in that one. Maybe just a late start, a little bit sluggish. I guess not taking the team too seriously. Whatever may be the reason, Envy does not lose those matches and should never lose those matches. They do bounce back. As for Rogue, they continue on to be as dominant as possible, continuing on their regional performance with a 2-1 victory. but they do drop to Envy, so that is their only loss from there. As for Sonics going up against 2 top tier rosters, they do get that separation between the team below them. The big thing for Sonics, though, is that same game differential as Jamal Jabari, because Jamal Jabari has the upset over Envy. Sonics, though, convincing wins over the lower teams, keeping it close against the top tier teams. That's what you want to see out of Sonics. That 3-0 loss for Sonics against Rogue does not tell the story, so make sure you guys go back and check out that one. It's a pretty good game. So that wraps it up for part 1. We're now going to go to part 2, which is the playoffs, and we're going to bracket it up and go by groups as always. The top 4 grouping, then we'll cover through quarterfinals, and then we'll go to the next one and then close it out. So up first, we got Energy, Jamal Jabari, G2, and Charlotte Phoenix. Energy versus Jamal Jabari. This is what I'm talking about for a team. Close it out. Don't waste your time. 3-0 clean sweep. End it. And that's what Energy does. This is the best team in North America for a reason. They're not going to blink on any of these matches. On the other side for G2 and Charlotte Phoenix, this one was a surprise. If you guys did not get to go back and watch Charlotte Phoenix, my recommendation is go to Twitch version 1 GG. Check out game 3 for version 1 versus Charlotte Phoenix. That is the Charlotte Phoenix that I was hoping to see for a long time, and they busted out in a big way. That is why I could see G2 struggling. So they come out of the gate really aggressive, really hot. G2 bounces back, and then very close 1-goal games in game 3 and 4. But for G2 to lose that and take a first round loss is a pretty big surprise. So that one caught us all off guard on the broadcast, which then leads us to Energy and Charlotte Phoenix. Remember, these are all single elimination in this final bracket. Energy, again, does not blink. 3-0. I don't care how aggressive and how fast Charlotte Phoenix is playing. I do not think anybody on that team is as capable enough as doing that as any of the players on Energy. So I think they just get outclassed. Energy, again, without losing a game, moves into the semifinals. We then drop down to the next 4, which is Team Envy, Kansas City Pioneers, E United, and Ghost Gaming. This is where the upsets start to begin as well. Not only is G2 losing to Charlotte Phoenix, but Envy is losing to Kansas City Pioneers after Kansas City Pioneers goes 0-9 just the day before. Talk about how, yes, we don't want to take certain things into account, how we don't want to overlook certain things. Teams have the ability to obviously have an off day. That is why I like this new version of the grid. It is just determining seeding, but you still have the ability to bounce back the next day. And Kansas City Pioneers does exactly that with a 3-1 victory over Rogue. 2 overtimes, a 1-goal game in game 1. The only separator was game 2. But Kansas City Pioneers performed the Spaceman sweep where you lose game 1 and then get 3 in a row. But 2 overtime wins over Envy. That is not an easy thing to do with Envy's defense. Creative to Kansas City Pioneers. Congrats to them. We then drop down to E United versus Ghost Gaming. Based on the way that E United has been trending, I was having the expectation of them winning. But Ghost puts up a good fight. It's what you want to see. 2 overtimes, a very close back and forth battle where they kind of trade some wins here and there. But they both get an overtime. The separator is that last game where E United puts them away. 5 goals. It's very tough to stop a team. If they're putting up 3-4 plus goals a game, very unlikely that you're going to win. Something about that Ghost defense broke down. I'd be curious to go back and watch at what that is more specifically. We then go to the quarterfinals of this pairing, Kansas City Pioneers and E United. And E United continues their path to dominance. Another big win for them. Able to stop out a chaotic Kansas City Pioneers that has looked a little bit lesser. But because they're able to beat G2, it does look like they are coming a little bit better. E United, though, a big start, 3-0, and then a 2-1 overtime win. Kansas City Pioneers almost reverse sweeps until it goes to the last game in game 5, and that does keep it shut out. United 1-0 moves on to the semifinals against Energy, and then more Energy. 4-1 victory, but if you look at the scoreline, game 1, 1-goal game. Game 2, 1-goal game. 3 and 4. All the first 4 games are 1-goal games, and there's 3 overtimes in there as well. This series was actually incredible. A lot of people are going to look at this and just be like, oh yeah, Energy does what Energy does best. I want people to go and watch what E United is doing in this series. Focus on their perspective, focus on the rotations, watch Wondamike and Tristan and what they do. A big reason why they are so dominant nowadays is because what Tristan has been adding to that team on offense. A lot of credit to E United to break into the semifinals for the first time in, I think, ever, if I'm being completely honest. E United, again, finally starting to find their form. Again, one of these overtimes goes the other way, possibly some different results here. So United, credit to them in the way that they played, but Energy, again, does not lose. That puts Energy to the grand finals. We'll go take a look at the other bracket. We've got Space Station and Alpine and Rogue and Continuum. Space Station has a little bit of a rough day in the regionals. They bounce back, go well in groups, and then they come back here in the playoffs and continue on that dominance. 3-1 victory over Alpine. Nothing to worry about here. Alpine does keep it relatively close and overtime in there as well in game number 4. Space Station closes it out. That's what you want to see from them. On the flip side, you've got Continuum and Rogue. After Rogue has a good performance, They then falter to Continuum. I don't know how this is happening. This is kind of the weird stuff, but this is what also makes me worried about Rogue. Rogue is a team that looks good. They get their teams and their fans' hearts up, and then they let them down. It's just what Rogue does. I don't get it. I don't understand why. But I talk about my conflict yesterday with Rogue, where they look really, really solid. But there's times where I do not have the expectation for First Killer or Turnturo to continue to play at that level every single time. It needs to be a team effort. So if people are having a little bit of a lesser day, or you're not popping off or playing out of your mind that day, it doesn't matter. You're still cohesive and still able to get victories. That is my assumption. I don't think First Killer was able to 1v3 dribble like he did against NRG against this team, and that's why they don't get those victories. Those were the big difference makers against NRG and other teams of the sort. So again, Rogue dropping here to Continuum, a big upset. Congrats to Continuum. They move on to the quarterfinals. We drop down then as well. We got Pittsburgh Knights and the Peeps versus Version 1 and Sonics. I'm going completely out of order with this. Pittsburgh Knights been looking absolutely stellar. Peeps say, you know what? We're still a good team and we should still be considered, which I think is fair. And the Peeps win 3-1 over the Knights. I personally think that Peeps has a really good play style for the Knights. The Knights is a little bit more defensive heavy. The Peeps are overly aggressive. They have no problem sending an extra person to go for demos, and it is something that has caused a lot of teams that like to play aggressive or match your pacing trouble. Case in point, they always have Version 1's number. So I think the Peeps do a really good job here. Playstyle matchup, I think that favors them, and they take advantage of it. So congrats to the Peeps. Finding a way to get through that defense, because it is not an easy thing to do. Version 1 versus Sonics, another close nail biter. Version 1 comes out of the gate pretty aggressive. They throw a game in that overtime, which is unfortunate. A little bit of a mistake on the back end. I think it was Torment who was just low on boost, so he missed the touch. And then it just goes back and forth again. Sonics comes out really aggressive, and then Version 1 seems like they figured it out. A little bit more slow play. Version 1, again, I think just tried to utilize the backboard a little bit too much, but the biggest issue here was their defense. A lot of times teams overlapping, multiple players in the corner, all three of them just not spreading out and keeping clean rotations on defense. And credit to Sonics. When Sonics gets going, whether it be J-Ross with solo plays and air dribbles, or whether it be someone else like T. Corell just hitting some crazy redirect, if Sonics has clean rotation, they are very difficult to stop, and Shock holds it all down. So again, a really good match for Sonics, continuing about trying to improve. Luckily for Version 1, this is just the grid. It is not regionals, which are the big focus. So gonna have to bounce back on this one. We then go to the quarterfinals. We got Space Station versus Continuum. Big example here. Talk about wanting to be the best teams. Top 4 should never drop to lower teams. Not to say Continuum is a bad team by any means. I think they've been putting up really competitive matches, but Space Station, again, like Energy, should not waste any time in these matches. I will say though, game 2, that is a 5-4 game. Continuum very close, able to keep up. But this is a defensive issue. If you guys are having issues with trying to stop Space Station and you're letting in that many goals, 3, 5, and 6, that's a ton of goals over 3 games. You got to be looking at what's going on defense. How do you stop them from scoring in the first place? That is where it lies on how we combat this. A lot of it, though, is giving Space Station space. The difficulty, though, is they create a lot of that on their own. So keep in mind with that one. Looking at Sonics and Peeps in the other quarterfinal. This one caught me off guard. Not because it was a sweep by Peeps, but just because Sonics, I thought, was going to be able to at least get a game. But the reason why they don't, 2 overtimes, game 1 and 2, 31 seconds, and then 2 minutes and 34 seconds, both in favor of the Peeps. They average just shy of 3 goals a game, which is very difficult to stop if someone is scoring that much. I do think the Peeps, they are a lot of teams' kryptonite. Teams that like to play fast and aggressive and high flying. I think the Peeps do really well at punishing, counterattacking, and pairing with demos. So I would have to go back and watch that one specifically to see how Sonics broke down, but even in the V1 Sonics game, there was a bunch of demos and stuff, but Peeps just are creative with it, and they find a way to punish without really the mistake that goes with it. They just time it so great. So congrats to the Peeps, moving on back into the semifinals after a rough performance and early outs of certain tournaments. Goes to show they're still a top tier team, and why are they getting an honorable mention? This is the reason why. You cannot count them out. I have expectations of them to perform even better in the following weeks and bump themselves back into the top 10. We then get into the other lower semifinal, Space Station versus the Peeps, and this is one where the Peeps have said a long time ago that they are pretty much a mini Space Station, and it shows it here. 4-1 victory for Space Station. Just doing with the Peeps, but better with more control and more mechanics. Not to discredit the Peeps, I think there's a ton of mechanics and a ton of talent on that team. They just get overwhelmed by Space Station. Space Station is relentless in their playstyle. Not only do they challenge just about everything, but they always have a player next to them to back it up. It just constantly is a 1-2 where this player goes in for the 50 or the challenger to deny the block. Almost immediately after, you have another player following up. They're just overwhelming in everything, whether it's offense or defense, and it is why it makes them so competitive. So unfortunate for Peeps, they do get outclassed here but they do put up a pretty good fight. The biggest thing here that I'm paying attention to is Space Station is actually completely shutting out Peeps in a couple of these games. But when they don't, Peeps do put up a fight. In game number 4, 5-1. So I'm curious on what happened on that one. May have just kind of found that adjustment of like, okay, this is how we're going to beat Space Station. But I think my biggest thing about Space Station I enjoy is with their coach in Chrome. One of the best at learning to adapt and changing playstyles, and he can do that because he has such talented players on that roster. So Space Station, early adjustments and quick adjustments make them so good. We then go into the last series, which is the grand finals, because it's not a double elimination. We only have the one, no bracket resets here. So Energy versus Space Station, a nail biter all the way to 7. Starts off with Space Station actually getting the leg up. They do get the first victory, and congrats to them on that in a 1-goal game. Then we get 2 more 1-goal games, but these go to overtime and they trade. So it alternating all the way. And that continues on all the way until game number 6, where Space Station wins, then Energy wins, then Space Station wins, and back and forth. And that's what I expect against top-tier rosters. I do not expect trends to continue for a long time, as both these teams are very talented and have a lot of talent on them, where they can make those small, minute changes with veteran coaches and veteran staff behind them. The difference here, though, is Energy really finds the answer in game number 6 with a 3-1 victory. The way that they approach that series, I do recommend going back and watching the series. It was probably one of the better games of Rocket League that we've gotten to see. Not as good as the NV Energy one from regionals, but this series was pretty dang close and pretty dang tight. So that game 6, Energy did some pretty unique things that I really enjoyed with the way that they're passing and hitting the ball. I think the reason why Energy just looks so good is that the way that they play as a team, they have an answer for everything. Their communication, just the way that they go and coordinate about the game. I don't know if it starts with Garrett or what it may be, but with Squishy being more vocal now, I just feel like the vision on screen that they have is absolutely impeccable. The ability to communicate when everything is happening and when everything is breaking down, how to buy time, how to move it out of field, like what it is to work the space of the field. It's just really exciting to watch. It's really entertaining, but they do bring it to game 7, and credit to Space Station for keeping it as close as they do. But Energy does score the only goal in that game, and they close it out. So 4-3, Energy now. That is 2 series in a row. That is 2 tournaments in a row where they have looked great. Talking for Energy on this entire tournament for the grid, they go 23-6. That is pretty dominant for them. They're only dropping 2 games in day 1 and 4 games in day 2. But man, really good performance from Energy. They are looking like a solidified team. A lot of people are curious, why would you drop the 4-time? Why would you get rid of Turbo? What are you thinking? They've really made it work, and I think it's commendable. Now that we've seen roughly 4 or 5 months of gameplay from Energy, they said at the very beginning when they were dominating everybody during the offseason, it can only get better. We're just getting started. I think we're starting to see that better. It's only going to get even better from here, and I'm excited to watch it develop, because Energy, they are the reigning world champs technically, and even though we haven't seen Worlds in over a year or land in over a year, I do have nods towards Energy being a team that can possibly do a repeat. That's going to wrap it up for this video and my recap for the North American Grid week number 2. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, drop those in the comments down below. While you're down there, if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff, as it does help me out greatly. But that is going to wrap it up for me. More Rocket League action going down this weekend. We've got European regional number 2 going on. A lot of matches as well. A lot of upsets as well. It's been crazy and all over the place. If you guys want to come watch them with us, twitch.tv/LAWL, link in the description down below. We'd love to see you in chat. That is going to wrap it for me. Hopefully we see you in chat later on today, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.